Okay.
So Kumar, today we'll start with a new topic which is on the compliance audit for a research analyst for the financial year 24-25.
Yeah. Yeah.
For making that, I have made a presentation and I will share my screen and simultaneously I will talk with you. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I will explain how it is to be done.
Yes.
Now, can you see me? See my screen?
Yeah.
Now?
Yeah. Yeah. Very much.
Okay. So we are doing a research analyst compliance audit financial year 24-25.
Yeah.
Now, in order to do that, we need to bifurcate the activities into three types. First is I will bifurcate the activities into business, operation, and lastly as a compliance. Now, based on these three activities, I will prepare documents.
Yeah.
What sort of documents? I will prepare certificates which I will get. Then I will prepare manuals, declarations. Then I will generate records and I will prepare reports also.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So these are the four major documents that we get while performing the activity as a research analyst.
Mm.
Next point. See, in business activity, what you do is that research analyst certificate is granted by SEBI. Now,
Yes.
the document type is SEBI registration certificate. Now, who will be responsible for maintaining or the compliance with the tenure of this certificate will be cast on the individual or the principal officer of the non-individual research analyst.
Yeah.
Next point is on enlistment certificate that is issued by Bombay Stock Exchange. Now, as you know that RAASB is the supervisory authority appointed by SEBI. So they issue enlistment certificate to individuals and to the non-individuals research analysts which are registered with SEBI. Now, these two documents must be kept in hand. Third is education.
You have to change the screen, Rohit.
Why you cannot see it?
Yeah. First, it is only in the first page, So you need to change this screen.
Where are you right now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where is
Now
the
it is correct. Now we are in the business.
okay? So you got the point. Second point also or not?
Yeah. Enlistment
Okay.
certificate.
Third point is education. Now, education, there are two categories. One is individual RA and the non-individual RAs. In individual RAs, you will have to check the education of the individual research analyst. Whereas you have to check the education of the principal officer of the non-individual research analyst entity. Or the individuals are employed as research analysts, they also must comply with the educational criteria.
Yeah.
Lastly, the partners of research analyst must comply with the regulation 7 educational criteria. Lastly, all these people must have a valid NISM certificate.
Yeah.
Now, document types are educational certificates and NISM certificates. The responsibility for maintaining these documents or certificates is with the individuals or the principal officer.
Yeah.
Fourth point, persons associated with research services. Now, there is an additional category that is introduced for the financial year 24-25. Now, these persons associated must be a graduate and have the NISM certificate. Now, the documents that are there is graduate degree and NISM certificate. Now, these documents, responsibility for maintaining these documents is cast on the individuals or principal officer in the case of non-individual research analyst. Point number 5, deposit requirement under regulation 8. Now, A registered research analyst must deposit based on his client number of clients. He must make a deposit with scheduled commercial bank, which is designated by SEBI. Okay,
Yeah.
this is based on the number of clients.
Yeah.
Okay, the compliance part is that every time this deposit must be addition to the previous one if there are the limit of the number of clients is crossed.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and the responsibility is cast on the individuals or the principal officer of the non-individual category.
Yeah.
Point number 6, registration with KRA and FIU. Now they issue registration certificates, and it is the responsibility of the individual and principal officer as applicable. Point number 7, the applicant research analyst employed by its representatives and partners must be a fit and proper person under the schedule 2 of SEBI intermediaries regulation 2008. Now whenever you employ any person, you must collect a declaration from the employee that he complies with the fit and proper person under schedule 2 of SEBI intermediaries regulation 2008.
Okay.
This responsibility of collecting this declaration is on the individual or the principal officer in the case of non-individual.
Yeah.
I hope you got this point clear.
Yeah.
Point number 8, publishing investors charter and investors grievances matrix. Now this is very important because most of the research analyst individuals are not complying with this particular criteria. So it is very important that you publish investors charter and investor grievances matrix, and it must be displayed on board, or it must be sent by email to your clients, or it must be displayed on the website of the research analyst.
Okay.
This responsibility is applicable to the individual and principal officer as the case may be.
Yeah.
Point number 9 is appointment of compliance officer under regulation 26. Now for a company, it is compulsory that a compliance officer must be appointed.
Okay.
Otherwise, if it is other than a company, it is not required to have a compulsory compliance officer. The individual may be a compliance officer in the individual RA. Point number 10. The research analyst must display the name of the research analyst, SEBI registration number, address with its branches if any, then the contact details. Next point is also the details of the compliance officer, like his name, contact details, and timing. Now these documents or these part must be displayed prominently at the office of the research analyst.
Okay.
Point number 11, cyber security and cyber resilient framework. This is applicable to certain research analyst only. So it is the responsibility of the principal officer to comply with these guidelines or framework.
Okay.
Point number 12, research entity. Group level segregation of research services and distribution services. So far as non-individuals are concerned, it is very important that a group level segregation of research services and distribution activities are done. So a documentation must be done with respect to the segregation.
Okay.
And the responsibility for this documentation is cast on the principal officer.
Okay.
Last point, that is point number 13 in the business, is follow the guidelines and regulation 17 on compensation of research analyst.
Yeah.
This must be documented and all records must be maintained for audit purposes, for compliance audit purposes.
Yeah.
Responsibility for maintaining the documents and records is cast on the principal officer.
Yeah.
Next point is operation parts.
Yeah.
See, in operation, you normally onboard the client, collect fees from the client, and you publish the research report. These are the three major activities in the operations part.
Yeah.
So we'll go one by one. Onboard of clients. First of all, when you onboard your clients, you must have the KYC of clients. Second, you must take consent of on the terms and conditions. Then you must take consent on the MITC from clients. Now, these consent on MITC from clients, there are varying dates that are applicable. Okay, so
Yeah.
from old clients and new clients, there are different dates. But
Okay.
for the from the next financial year, it is applicable to all. But for the current financial year 24-25, there are varying dates from old clients and new
Oh,
clients
okay.
based on the circular date.
Yeah.
Next point is family of client must be identified. Family of research analyst must be identified
Yeah.
because we have to segregate and keep arm's length between the transactions that are happening.
Mhm.
Next is report on number of clients. Why report on number of clients? Because there is a requirement for additional deposit under regulation 8 for the number of clients that are applicable. Okay,
Mm.
so documents that are required are records that are to be kept. This is the responsibility of the operational manager or the individual and the principal officer through operating through the operating manager.
Okay.
Next point is free fees from clients can be charged as per regulation 15A. Now 15A specifies that you cannot charge beyond a certain limit, that is 1,51,000 for the current financial year from the clients who are family. Okay, so a record with respect to that is required to be kept. Segregation of or identifying or of the family must be done in this way. The responsibility for identifying and keeping the records is on the individual or principal officer.
Okay.
Next point is you make reports, research reports. Okay.
Yeah.
Research reports must contain all disclosures under regulation 19. It must contain basic contents as per regulation 20.
Yeah.
Care to be taken in distribution
Can be
report
taken.
under regulation 21.
Yeah.
You must maintain a record. The document type must be record. It is not report. You
Mm.
must maintain a record for all these parts, and the responsibility must be on the individual or principal officer.
Yeah.
Compliances. That is third part.
Yeah.
In compliances, first is you will have to obtain a SaaS certificate. That is software as a services. If you are using a software as a services, then you need a certification from the
Oh,
developer.
okay.
So the document type is certificate, and the platform provider must be providing you the certificate.
Okay.
Point number two is preparation of website as under regulation 19A.
Yeah.
19A regulation is introduced in financial year 24-25. So the website
Mm.
must be a functional website containing all the statutory declarations, statutory or regulatory requirements that are applicable, and it must be documented and record must be kept for every changes that are happening in the website. The principal officer is responsible for maintaining these points. Point number 3, establishing internal policies and procedures under regulation 15. A document must be prepared for outlining the internal policies and procedures. Now, these internal policies and procedures must be disseminated to the lowest level as much as possible. Now, the preparation of the documents must be cast on the or is cast on the principal officer or the top management.
Yeah.
Point number 4, follow the guidelines under regulation 16 on limitations on trading by research analyst. So, a guideline or a document on guidelines must be prepared by the compliance principal officer, and it must be ensured by the compliance officer that all the guidelines are being followed.
Yeah, okay.
Point number 5. Follow the guidelines under Regulation 18 on limitations on publication of research report, public appearances, and conduct of business, etc. Guidelines must be prepared, documents must be prepared, and each individual or employee in the organization must, who are working as a team, must follow the guidelines. The responsibility for reporting this is cast on the compliance officer.
Yeah, yeah,
Sixth is follow the restrictions on distribution of research report as per Regulation 22. Now, these must be documented and a record must be kept by the compliance officer.
yeah,
Point number 7, dealing with family of clients and client of research analyst family. Now, the family definition has been modified in the financial year 24-25 itself. So, the family of client is defined, and the family client of the research analyst, the family of the research analyst is also defined. So, a record or documents must be maintained clearly stating who is who, um, must be maintained with the compliance officer so that there is no spillovers.
yeah,
Point number 8 is on research analyst or research entity shall maintain arm's length relationship between its research activities and other activities.
yeah.
Other activities are permitted by the SEBI, provided a prior approval is taken. So, if it is taken, then a record must be maintained, and the compliance officer is responsible for maintaining these records.
Okay.
Point number 9. Research analyst or research entity shall abide by code of conduct as specified in third schedule. The RA third schedule, research analyst regulation third schedule maintain guides on certain code of conduct to be maintained by research analyst and research entity. A record should be maintained of non-compliance by the compliance officer.
Yeah,
Point number 10. Maintenance and preservation of records under Regulation 25. Now, Regulation 25 mentions that certain records are to be maintained, and these records are to be preserved for minimum 5 years, and a compliance audit must be done uh, annually by a SEBI registered research analyst. Now,
okay.
the records responsibility is cast on the compliance officer under Regulation 25.
Mm.
Point number 11. Client level segregation of research analyst and distribution services under Regulation 26C.
Yeah,
Next is on compliance and monitoring process for client segregation at group level or family level. If it is a corporate or non-individual, it must be at group level, and if it is a individual, it must be at family level. So the maintenance of record with respect to the same is cast on the compliance officer.
okay.
Point number 12 is on dispute resolution and redressal of investors' grievances under Regulation 26A and 26B, respectively. There is a time limit for dispute resolution and redressal of investors' grievances. So, all grievances or disputes must be reported by the compliance officer, and it must be resolved by the compliance officer within the time frame as per the regulation. Point number 13.
Yeah,
A research analyst or research entity who uses artificial intelligence tools, irrespective of the scale and scenario of adoption of such tools, for servicing its clients, shall be solely responsible for number 1, security, confidentiality, and integrity of the client data. Point number 2, use of any other information or data of research services. Point number 3 is research services based on output of the artificial intelligence tools. And fourth is on compliance with any other law for the time being in force. So all these must be documented and records must be kept by the principal officer. Point number 40, compliance with advertisement code. Now, a record must be kept with respect to all advertisements that are published. The responsibility is to be handled by the compliance officer. Semi-annual reporting to Bombay Stock Exchange.
Oh.
Now, previously there used to be quarterly filing of return, but in October 2024, SEBI has come out with a circular that the reporting must be semi-annual. So the next semi-annual reporting is 30th of April for the last 6 months. That is from October, November, December, January, February, March.
March.
These 6 months must be reported to BSE. The responsibility is of the compliance officer,
Yeah.
or the principal officer also.
Yeah.
Lastly, 16 point, declaration or changes filed with SEBI and BSE. All changes, suppose you change your address, you change your contact details,
Yeah.
or you have a change in your composition of your partnership firm, or your change in the shareholding pattern, then all this must be documented and reported to the proper authority. Either it is the, not either, it is now BSE only that should be reported about this. Okay,
Yeah.
and the responsibility is cast on the compliance officer.
Okay.
I hope you got the
Yeah.
broader picture of what a compliance audit for the financial year 24-25 is about.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there are more points that are basically going to crop up, but these are the basic considerations that you must look at.
Okay. Okay.
Hello, thank you very much. I hope this video was useful. We'll prepare more videos on other financial intermediaries as well. Stay connected. Thank you.